Up today. More 2023 college football win totals today. Guess who we're doing today? Let's see. We've done the SEC. We've done the Big Ten. We've done the Pac-12. Guess which conference is up today? The ACC. Win totals for the ACC. We're going to do it the same way we've done the other ones. You can click back and watch. I've done this video about the Big Ten, like I mentioned, the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Pac-12. We're going to do the ACC today, headlined by the Taters. Or is it headlined by the Taters? Before we get into today's video, and yes, I have copious notes here, what team do you think is winning the most games in the ACC this year? I've got the Vegas win totals here, the over-under, the expected number of wins for every team in the ACC. What team do you think has the highest win total or expected win total in the ACC? Not the Taters. No, Florida State actually has a higher expected win total right now than Clemson does. But we're going to go through these in alphabetical order one by one. I've still got the Big 12 conference to do. I've already made the notes for that video on here. So ACC video now, the Big 12 version of this video will be out later today. Today's Saturday. So I'll get at least 2 videos out for you today. But we're just going to go through these in alphabetical order. Also, I have included Notre Dame here in the ACC part of the video because, Notre Dame, thinks their shit don't stink. They're too good to join a conference. But they play 4 or 5 ACC teams a year, and I'm not going to do one of these videos specifically for Notre Dame. So I have included Notre Dame in with the ACC win totals. But Florida State's still more expected wins than Rudy. Anyway, we're going to go through them in alphabetical order. Brief thoughts about a lot of these teams here, more in depth on others. Boston College, we'll start there, 5.5. The ACC, I guess every conference has this to some degree, but it seems to me like right now the ACC might have more of these teams than any other conference, and it's just forgettable teams. I don't know anybody that hates Boston College. It's not like people running around talking about Boston College or making fun of Boston College all the time, but they just, I don't know, they just seem like a forgettable team. They're at 5.5. So not even expected to make a bowl game. Pitiful. Going in alphabetical order, that brings us to Clemson. Clemson's win total for 2023, at least the expected Vegas win total, the over-under right now, 9.5. Now you look at Clemson's schedule. They do play Florida State at home. They play South Carolina at the end of the year. Do they have a big non-con game this year? I don't think so. Not really. Well, obviously they've got the South Carolina game. They play that every single year at the end of the season. But a lot of times Clemson will play a big non-con game at the beginning of the year. They don't have that this year. Not knocking them for that. Just saying that you got to take that into account when you're looking here at the 9.5 wins. So that means they're expected to lose at least 2 games. I mean, they play Notre Dame. That could be tough. They play Florida State. That could be tough. You got the rest of the ACC competition that they have to go through. But, man, I don't know. It seems to me you're pretty brave if you're picking the under for Clemson on 9.5 wins. I know their offense has been bad for a couple of years, or at least not nearly as good as what we were used to seeing under Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. But they got rid of that garbage offensive coordinator they had, Brandon Streeter, and brought in Riley from TCU. I do think their offense will be better this year than kind of what we saw in years past. I don't think it's going to be the Clemson offense that we saw like when they were winning national titles or anything like that. I just don't think even if Cade Klubnik is being really, really good, which there's not much evidence that he will be other than his talent coming out of high school. I mean, he played some last year. He wasn't great. He played a lot in relief of DJ Ukulele. He got the start there at the end of the year. Look, he threw more interceptions than he did touchdowns last year, Cade Klubnik. Now, he was a true freshman, so maybe you say, well, that's sort of expected. Yeah, I get it. Completed about 55 or 60% of his passes. Now, I do think he'll be a lot better this year. He's not Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson, though. I do like Will Shipley, the running back. They don't really have any wide receivers that compare to, some of the wide receivers they had during the Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence years. Not that they've got terrible wide receivers, but they don't compare there. Defense, I think they'll be good, but this is the second year now they'll be without Brent Venables, and they lost a lot to the NFL draft last year, but they recruit really well on that side of the ball. So I still think Clemson's going to be a really, really good team. And, man, it's just it's hard for me to imagine them losing 3 games But that's how many games they would have to lose in order for you to take the under here with their win total being at 9.5. If you're going to bet the under on Clemson at 9.5, that means they're going to almost have to lose to Notre Dame. They're going to almost have to lose to Florida State at home. And then they're going to have to lose a third game on top of that. I don't know about that. I don't think Clemson is as great as they were, like I mentioned, during their championship runs, but I still think they're a pretty good team. Duke is at 6.5. This is maybe a little surprising. They had a pretty good year last year. I think they won 8 or 9 games, something like that. They open up with Clemson this year, which will be interesting to see. But the over-under for Duke is at 6.5. I might lean over on that. Duke can go 7-5, can't they? And then you got Florida State. They've got the highest win total or expected win total of any team in the ACC right now. Their expected win total is 10. I already mentioned they play on the road at Clemson pretty early in the year. I think that's like week 4 or 5. Now, the ACC doesn't have divisions anymore, so I actually think Florida State and Clemson are probably going to end up playing twice. But, of course, these win totals are just for regular season games. They don't take into account any potential conference championships or postseason games or anything like that. So these win totals are just based on the 12-game regular season. Florida State travels and plays Clemson. They get LSU to open the year. It's technically a neutral site game, but it's in Orlando. If you remember last year, Florida State and LSU kicked off the season at another technically neutral site game in New Orleans, an hour drive from Baton Rouge. This time, Orlando, hour and a half or so from Tallahassee. Should be a good game, Florida State and LSU. Both of those teams are ranked inside the top 10 of every single preseason poll you look at. In a lot of preseason rankings, they have both those teams inside the top 5. Outside of those 2 games for Florida State, it's hard to find another game you can expect them to lose. Doesn't mean they won't lose another one. But, you look at some of, they play Florida at the end of every year. Florida is not expected to have a very good year at all, and Florida State beat them last year. Florida's win total, we did the SEC version of this video the other day. Florida's expected win total, 5.5. They're not even expected to make a bowl game, Florida. So Florida State, they're going to be a favorite against in-state rival Florida at the end of the year. They play Miami every year. They'll be a favorite over Miami. They whipped Miami last year on the road. They get Miami at home this year. Outside of that LSU and Clemson game, Florida State's going to be a favorite in every single game they play. Over-under win total at 10 for Florida State. Georgia Tech at 4.5. Year 1 of who the hell's the coach there now? Brent Key. I don't know. They just promoted from within because no one wanted the job. That's not 100% true. There's a couple of people that showed some interest in the Georgia Tech job, but Georgia Tech didn't want to pay them. So everybody told Georgia, ended up turning the job down because there wasn't enough money. So Georgia Tech was forced to promote some nobody that nobody's ever heard of, Brent Key, the head coach. But the expected win total for the Nerds this year, 4.5, which would be one of the best years they've had in a while if they somehow managed to go over that 4.5 and get to 5 or 6 wins. Bowl eligibility should be the goal for Georgia Tech. Louisville at 8. Louisville's a team that is starting to get, I don't know if hype is the right word, but I'm hearing more people talk about Louisville this offseason than I do in a typical offseason. I know they got a new coaching staff. They bring Brom in from, Purdue? We'll see. I'm going to have to see Louisville play and look good. I got bit by Louisville a couple of years ago, betting-wise, and it turned me off from them. I watched the Louisville game a couple of years ago early in the season and fell in love with their offense, and I was like, wow, they got a ton of speedy wide receivers and running backs and big play potential. I don't know how many games they'll win, but, man, they can cover some of these spreads, and I started betting on Louisville like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. And they lost for me every single time, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth about Louisville. But that number seems high to me. Like, if you just don't know that much about Louisville, maybe, or maybe you don't follow the ACC that closely, the win total is 8. I mean, that's like the 3rd highest win total in the entire ACC. So I'm going to have to look some more into Louisville before I start doing my prediction videos, which will be sometime next week. Which, by the way, if you're on the Uncle Lou Patreon page, make sure you go over there. I made a post about my prediction videos a few days ago. You need to go over there and comment a team that you want to see me do a prediction video for. I'm going to start those videos next week. And that's where I get the teams from. I come in here, I pull up the Patreon page, I pick a team off that list. So for those of you that are members on Patreon, go over there, You'll see the post on the Patreon page. It's the first post on the page, very top of the page. And let me know what team it is you want to see me do a prediction video for. The link to my Patreon page is in the description of this video. So if you're not signed up over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page, what are you doing? Go sign up now. Yeah, it'll make you smarter and lower your cholesterol too, which is good. Get you off of that Lipitor, what's killing you from the inside out. Miami is up next. What do you think Miami's expected win total is for 2023? Very disappointing season last year, 5-7 in Mario Cristobal's first year. Talent level has been improved heading into year 2 for Super Mario. I still got some questions about their offensive line. They're going to have to start 1, maybe 2 true freshmen on that offensive line. They got to find a way to keep Tyler Van Dyke healthy this year and on his feet. And they got to play better defensively. 5-7 last year. 7.5 is the number for Miami right now heading into the 2023 season. That's their expected over-under on wins, 7.5. They play Texas A&M again early in the year. Of course, they play Florida State every year. So we'll see. 7.5, the number. I'm going to be honest. I know I keep falling for this every single year. Now, look, I'm not picking Miami to go 10-2 again. No. Learned my lesson on that last year. They made me look like a fool, which I don't need any help doing that, by the way. I do a good enough job on my own, making myself look like an idiot. I don't need Miami helping me out. I'll go over 7.5 for Miami, though. But 8-4. That's about as far as I'm willing to go. Maybe they go 8-4, but I'll take the over on the 7.5 wins. North Carolina sitting here at 8.5. Drake May comes back, loses all his wide receivers. One of the worst Power 5 defenses in the country last year, especially against the pass, North Carolina. And for whatever reason, they decided to keep Gene Chizik as defensive coordinator, which I don't think they should have done. Talked about Dabo firing Brandon Streeter. Dabo screwed up, hired Brandon Streeter, turned out to be a disaster. He recognized it and fired him after 1 year. Mac Brown at North Carolina goes out, hires Gene Chizik to be the defensive coordinator. It was an utter failure. For whatever reason, Mac Brown kept him around. That's going to bite North Carolina, I think. But they've got a pretty high win total here. They're sitting at 8.5. 8.5. Good luck with that if you're North Carolina. I love Drake May, Heisman candidate, but come on, 8.5. 9-3. They got to win 9 games to go over that. With that defense, I'm not so sure. NC State expected to take a step back this year. A lot of NC State was hyped up last year. Remember, they were the team that was going to challenge Clemson for the ACC last year. Didn't work out that way. Don't turn your back on the Wolfpack. But they're expected to take a step back. They lost their quarterback, Devin Leary. He transferred to Kentucky. So they'll have a new guy there. But 6.5 is the number for NC State heading into 2023. Pitt at 6.5. You can put them in the same category as Boston College. They're just forgettable. I mean, like I said, no one sits around making fun of Pitt. No one laughs about them. No one hates Pitt. They're just kind of a forgettable team. Yes, I know they had Kenny Pickett a couple of years ago and played for the ACC title with Whippity Whip, Whoopity Doo. Whatity what, and fuck you too. But it just, no one ever, it's Pitt, for God's sakes. 6.5. Okay. Syracuse, 6.5. They were an interesting team last year, kind of like Illinois, right? Came out of nowhere. No one was expecting Syracuse to do anything. In fact, a lot of people thought Dino Babers was going to get, a lot of people thought last year would be Dino Babers' last year at Syracuse, myself included. And then you look up in the middle of October and they were undefeated. 4-0, 5-0, 6-0. They're ranked in the top 20, which might have ended up being a bad thing because now they had to keep Dino Babers. Back to reality this year, at least according to the good people out in Vegas, they've got the win total for Syracuse sitting at 6.5. Virginia, 3.5. Again, Pitt, Boston College, Virginia. I'm not saying all three of those teams are the same in terms of they're equally terrible or whatever. Pitt's had a couple of good seasons. Boston College has a good season every once in a while. I don't remember the last time Virginia had a good season, and I guess it's not going to be this year either. 3.5. Is that the lowest in all of the ACC? Wow. Yeah, it is. The next lowest is Georgia Tech at 4.5. Abysmal. Virginia sitting at 3.5. Virginia Tech, not any better. Well, not much better. 5 is the number for Virginia Tech. What is going on with the Virginia schools? They keep changing coaches. They can't get it right. One of those two schools, I keep saying this about the state of Virginia, the state of North Carolina, and the state of Arizona. Those 3 states should have one legitimate football program, period. No doubt about it. There's enough high school talent in those 3 areas to support a team. There's just no excuse for each of those 3 states. Not in Arizona, you got Arizona State. One of those 2 teams should be top 20. Virginia, you got Virginia and Virginia Tech. One of those teams should be top 20. In North Carolina, you got your pick of the litter. Duke, Wake Forest, North Carolina and NC State are the two more legitimate choices, I think. But it's just absolutely pathetic that those three states can't find one team that can get it together for a sustained period of time. It really is. But Virginia Tech sitting at 5. Wake Forest, 6. Win total for Wake Forest at 6. Man, seems like a long time ago when you had Sam Hartman, even though that was last year. But he transferred out. He's at Notre Dame now. Wake Forest is expected to come back to reality. Over-under win total for the Demon Deacons is 6. And then Notre Dame, I told you I'd mentioned them in the ACC video since they're not in a conference. Their win total is 9. So Clemson at 9.5, Florida State at 10, Notre Dame at 9. Those are the three highest. Notre Dame's got a tough schedule. They play Southern Cal. They play Clemson. Who else do they play? They play North Carolina? Maybe. Maybe. But I do think Notre Dame's going to be good. Marcus Freeman, again, heading into year 2, you see some improvement, generally speaking, with new head coaches in year 2, right? So Mario Cristobal at Miami heading into year 2. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame heading into year 2. And you can't underestimate how important it is that Notre Dame added Sam Hartman. It's been a while since Notre Dame had a truly elite quarterback. Now, I still have questions about Notre Dame's wide receivers, but they're going to have a good offensive line. They're going to have a good tight end. They're going to have a good running game. They, generally speaking, play good defense, especially along the front 4 or front 7. We'll see, but it is a tough schedule. So like I said, Southern Cal and Clemson, see how those two games work out for Notre Dame. But an over-under of 9, I think that's probably the right number, is 9. I can see Notre Dame winning 10-plus games in 2023. It's not out of the realm of possibility, right? You can point to last year, the humiliating losses to Stanford and Marshall, but they turned it around in the second half of the season. Notre Dame's struggles came early in the year. They looked like a much better team as the season went along. Not unusual, we consider the fact that was Marcus Freeman's first, go as a head coach. He was kind of learning as he went there over the course of the season, and Notre Dame seemed to get more comfortable and better as the season went along. If they can start out 2023 like they ended 2022, you got to remember they beat a red-hot South Carolina team in a bowl game. You can laugh if you want and say South Carolina, but that's the same South Carolina team that beat top 10 Clemson and top 10 Tennessee to close out the regular season. So South Carolina was not a pushover at the end of last year, but Notre Dame handled them in one of the better bowl games of the season, honestly. But the win total for Notre Dame sitting at 9. Gun to my head right now, I'll take the over on Notre Dame, 10-2. Again, I reserve the right to change my mind before I start doing these prediction videos. But there you go. That's the ACC. Let me know down below which one of these are wrong, which ones are right. Which one would you put your money on? What's a sure bet? Any sure bets on here? Any guarantees? Any easy money? Let me know down below. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Hit the thumbs up. Have a good morning.